And as the soft edge of this truth begins to touch you, you sense that the world you have taken as solid is nothing more than a moving shadow across the face of your own mind. It appears so firm, so unquestionable, yet it bends at the faintest whisper of a thought. Most have never noticed, for they are drunk with the dream, lulled by the constant hum of appearances, never suspecting that the stage they walk upon is lit from within by their own hidden light. You are living in a dream, and the dream is not happening to you. It is happening through you. The streets you walk, the faces you meet, the numbers in your account, the sound of your own name, all of it arises from the secret currents of your inner speech and feeling. Most assume that waking up means breaking free from sleep into something more real, more concrete. But the divine truth is the reverse. The concrete is the sleep, the fluid, formless awareness in which all this appears, that is the waking state. And when you know this, when you recognize yourself as the dreamer, you hold the key to shape the dream without struggle, without fear. Every image, every circumstance is but clay in the hands of your imagining. You may shape it gently, or you may shape it with power. Either way, it obeys. It has no life apart from you. In your current dream, you may see lack, or endless striving, or the constant anxiety of how to have enough. But what if you discovered that richness is not a matter of gathering, but of knowing, that wealth is not found in the distant future, but in the posture you take within right now? You do not wait for the gold to appear before you feel abundant. You feel abundant, and the gold appears. This is the law that cannot be broken. Consciousness externalizes. You reap not what you wish for, nor what you deserve, but what you are in the secret places of the heart. Imagine for a moment that you have awakened inside a dream, and realized you could think a thought, and the scene would bend to match it. Would you still plead with the dream for your survival, or would you walk through it like a king returning to his own city? In this dream of life, that power is yours already, though it has been hidden under layers of disbelief. The voices of the world, well-meaning perhaps, but blind, told you reality is fixed, that you must toil and wait, that you must prove yourself worthy of its blessings. Yet this is the voice of sleep, speaking to sleep. The awakened voice says, "All that the Father hath is thine," Luke 15:31, and it speaks in the present tense, not the future. As you hear these words, notice what stirs within you. Perhaps a flicker of recognition, as if you have heard them before in some other age. That is because this truth is not taught, it is remembered. You are not acquiring a new skill, but uncovering what you have always been. The capacity to assume the state of your desire and live from it. This is not a talent for the few, but the birthright of all. The dreamer does not wait for the dream to change. The dreamer changes, and the dream reflects it instantly. Let yourself, just for a moment, rest in the feeling that you already have what you once chased. Feel the warmth of it, the ease, the quiet joy that comes when the seeking ends. Do not force an image. Simply allow the mood to rise in you, like the first light before dawn. That mood is the seed. The soil is your own consciousness. Hold it gently, water it within a conversation that matches it, and you will see how swiftly the outer world bows to it. For you do not gather wealth by chasing it through the streets of the waking dream. You gather it by closing your eyes and walking in the inner country, where you are already rich. There no one denies you. There you do not ask. You know, and the more you return there, the more the waking dream conforms, until the two are indistinguishable, and you have forgotten which came first. Yet even this is but the threshold, for if you can awaken to the fact that money, possessions, opportunities, these are all shapes the dream may take, then what waits beyond is a far greater discovery. What happens when you realize that not only is the wealth within you, but the entire world is? What happens when you see that every face, every hand, every seeming stranger is none other than yourself in another form, calling you to remember the one dreamer? The answer to that lies just beyond the veil. You are beginning to lift even now, and as that veil thins, you begin to sense that the outer world is not merely a place you walk through, but a mirror, so precise it reveals the exact shape of your own inner state. Every detail, each conversation overheard, each figure in the distance, each unexpected turn has been drawn from the treasury of your own imagination. This is why life seems to repeat itself in patterns, not because fate has decreed it, but because you have been unknowingly rehearsing the same inner scenes, whispering the same silent sentences to yourself, over and over, until the dream obliges you. What you call coincidence is the echo of your own assumption, returning to you clothed in flesh and circumstance. Most search the reflection for clues on how to change their fortune, never realizing the reflection moves only when the face does. You could polish the mirror for years, rearrange the background, or plead with the images to alter themselves, but until you shift the expression within, the scene remains the same. To live richly in this dream is not to manipulate the shadows, but to awaken as the light from which they are cast. You do not command the mirror, you command yourself, and the mirror obeys. There is a secret you may have already felt in moments of quiet, that when you imagine with feeling, the imagined scene takes on a strange reality of its own. It is not a mere daydream, but an actual seed planted in the invisible soil of the dreamer's mind. If you hold it, water it with gratitude, and refuse to contradict it in thought or word, it grows in silence, until the outer world cannot help but rearrange itself to match it. This is not hope, this is law. As the seed is, so is the harvest. Consider how easily you have, without knowing it, rehearsed states of lack. You have seen yourself struggling in your mind's theater, playing out scenes of unpaid bills, quiet disappointments, or anxious conversations. Each time you infused them with feeling, believed them in the moment, and the dream faithfully brought them to life. The same law that carried these shadows into form will carry your light, if you will give it the same devotion. Imagine wealth as you once imagined want, and the dream will not resist you. It cannot. This is why the state you occupy inwardly is more important than any outer plan. A plan is of time, but a state is eternal, in the now. You may change a plan 1,000 times, but if the state is unchanged, the result is certain to repeat. To live in the state of already being provided for, already being favored, already walking in ease, that is to live as one who has awakened in the dream. You do not wonder if the dream will reflect it. You know it cannot do otherwise. In the quiet of your own inner room, close your eyes and feel yourself at rest in this new state, not as one hoping for its arrival, but as one remembering it as the most natural thing in the world. Let your inner conversations match it. Speak to yourself as you would if you had nothing to fear, nothing to chase. Hear yourself telling a trusted friend of the abundance that flows to you without effort. Feel the warmth in your chest as you speak these words. See the calm in their eyes as they listen. When this inner world becomes more real to you than the shifting scenes of the outer, you have crossed the threshold. The waking dream will bend itself to what you have seen in secret. But there is a deeper wonder still, for as you awaken to your authorship of the dream, you begin to realize that even those who seem to oppose you, those who seem indifferent or unhelpful, are playing the roles your own consciousness has assigned. They are not your enemies, they are your own shadows, acting in perfect agreement with the script you have written, without knowing you held the pen. And here arises a question that glows quietly in the center of your being. If all are yourself in disguise, and every part of the dream is your own light refracted, what happens when you love it all as yourself? What new kind of wealth comes when separation itself dissolves? The answer stirs even now, waiting like a shape just beneath the water's surface, ready to rise when you lean closer. And as you lean closer, the surface begins to shimmer, and you sense that love itself is the true currency of this dream. Not the sentimental love of fleeting moods, but the unshakable recognition that every form, every face, is drawn from the same infinite source as you. When you see through the mask, when you bless even the hand that once seemed to withhold, something ancient stirs within you, a quiet authority that needs no defense. In that moment, you stop trying to wrestle the dream into shape, because you realize the dream is already yielding to you. Love loosens what effort could never move. It is here that wealth begins to take on a deeper meaning, no longer a heap of gold to be guarded, nor a fleeting transaction of power, but a constant stream flowing from an inner well that cannot run dry. The world calls this luck, fortune, or privilege, but you will know it as the natural expression of a heart aligned with its own infinite source. To the one still asleep, it appears miraculous. To the awakened, it is as common as breathing. When you live from the state of fullness, you no longer measure life by what you can extract from it. You find yourself giving without fear, speaking with generosity, walking in ease. You notice that opportunities seem to arrive at your door without your pursuit, as if some invisible hand has gone before you, arranging the way. This is not chance, it is the law unfolding in perfect order, for you cannot keep alive within yourself a sense of lack, and expect the dream to show you abundance. Likewise, you cannot hold a state of plenty, and not see its reflection. The apostle's words become clear, for as he thinketh in his heart, so is he. Proverbs 23:7. The heart here is not the physical organ, but the deep felt assumption you carry in the secret place. This assumption does not shout, it hums quietly beneath every action, every word. It is the tone of your inner world, and it is this tone the dream listens to without fail. If your tone is fear, the dream will echo it. If your tone is security, the dream will echo it. If your tone is security, the dream will mirror it in 1,000 subtle ways. Begin to feel, right now, the tone of a life where nothing can be taken from you because nothing is missing. Let it spread through your chest, soften your shoulders, and warm your hands. Breathe as one who has already arrived. When the mind protests with its inventory of facts and evidence, let it speak, and then dissolve like mist under the morning sun. You are not bound to its reports. You are bound only to the vision you choose to hold. From this place, you may find that even the symbols of wealth begin to shift in meaning. The coins, the numbers, the possessions, they become playful ornaments, not the source of your peace. You enjoy them without clinging, and because you do not cling, they flow more freely. The dream is generous to those who no longer demand from it what they have already claimed within. And yet there is a still more delicate secret. The moment you cease to divide the dream into mine and not mine, giver and receiver, you step into a higher economy, where everything you touch prospers, not because you have taken it, but because you have recognized it as already yours in essence. The stranger on the street, the friend who calls unexpectedly, the sudden opportunity, each is part of your own infinite storehouse, simply wearing a different face, for the joy of your recognition. In this awareness, you begin to walk differently. You look upon the world, not as a marketplace of scarce goods, but as a garden where every tree belongs to you, and every fruit is ripe for the picking. You realize that to bless another is to enrich yourself, for there is no other. The dream ceases to be a game of gain and loss, and becomes a dance of unfolding abundance. And yet as this new vision steadies within you, another question rises, more subtle than the last. If the dream bends to your assumption, and love reveals every face as your own, what becomes of the self you thought you were? Who is it that is dreaming? And what happens when even that dreamer dissolves into the vastness from which all dreams arise? The answer waits like a silent room you have yet to enter, its door standing open in the quiet distance. And as you stand before that silent doorway, there is a strange sense that stepping through will not bring you somewhere else, but reveal that you have never truly moved at all. The self you thought you were, this bundle of memories, preferences, fears and ambitions, begins to feel like a garment you have worn for so long that you forgot it was not your skin. You sense without needing to explain it, that even this garment was imagined into being, woven from the same light and shadow that formed the dream you walk through each day. Here, wealth takes on a still deeper tone, for it is no longer the abundance of things, nor even the abundance of love exchanged between seeming selves. It is the richness of being itself, pure, untouched awareness that needs nothing, lacks nothing, and yet gives rise to all things. When you rest in this, you do not need to convince yourself of your worthiness. Worthiness is no longer a question. You do not need to strive for security. Security is the natural fragrance of knowing you cannot be diminished. It is as though you have been playing in the reflections upon the water, sometimes delighting in them, sometimes fearing their shapes, until one day you look down and see the water itself, still and endless, and you realize you are not merely looking at it, you are it. The dreamer and the dream are not two. What you imagined to be the limits of yourself were only the edges of a thought you once believed. From this vantage, the law of assumption becomes not just a tool, but the very description of how reality flows. You no longer imagine to get, you imagine because imagining is the act of being. You no longer live in the end to make it come. You live in the end because you recognize there is no beginning or end outside of what you declare now. The whole vast dream is contained within your present assumption, as surely as the oak is contained within the acorn. You may still delight in shaping the dream, choosing scenes, playing roles, exploring possibilities, but now you do so with the ease of one who knows the stage as their own. Even the so-called obstacles become part of the beauty, for they too are imagined, and their resolution is already woven into the pattern. You see that the wealth you once sought through accumulation is but a pale reflection of the infinite storehouse within, where every desire is already complete. Close your eyes and feel this storehouse, not as a distant vault, but as your own present being. Picture nothing if you wish, let it be formless and vast. Sense that within this stillness, every form is already alive, waiting only for your decision to take shape. The gold, the home, the relationships, the opportunities, they are not outside, they are in you now, as surely as your next breath is in you before you exhale it. This knowing brings a quiet joy that does not depend on the scene before you. Whether the dream currently shows abundance or lack, comfort or challenge, you walk in the same peace, for you know it is all your own work of art, and because you walk in peace, the dream rearranges itself to reflect that peace, until the outer matches the inner so precisely that the distinction fades. And yet there is one more step, a step not of effort, but of surrender. For in seeing yourself as the source of the dream, you may still be tempted to hold tightly to the role of creator, to stand apart from your creation as its master. But what happens when you release even this distinction, when you let go of the need to be the one shaping and simply rest as the awareness in which all shaping happens? What beauty emerges when the dream shapes itself effortlessly, without a single thought of control? The answer waits like a fragrance on the wind, already moving toward you, and as that fragrance reaches you, something softens, a loosening in the grip you did not know you held. The desire to control every movement of the dream gives way to a deep trust, as if the very fabric of life is breathing with you, guiding the unfolding without your strain. It is not resignation, but recognition that the same light which imagines the seed also imagines the blossom. The same unseen current that set you here already knows the shape of your path. You need not push the river, you are the river. This surrender is not the loss of power, but its perfection, for as long as you see yourself as the solitary doer, you are bound to the limits of effort. When you rest as the awareness in which all is done, you discover that action springs naturally from inspiration, without resistance, without the dust of striving. Doors open without knocking, help arrives without asking, the right words find you in the very moment they are needed. Here, even the idea of wealth begins to dissolve into something purer. The figures in the account, the possessions on the shelf, the glittering symbols, they remain, yet they are no longer the measure of your richness. Richness becomes the unbroken flow between thought and manifestation, between desire and fulfillment. It is the quiet knowing that nothing is withheld from you, because nothing is apart from you. You begin to see that the so-called delays of life were never punishments or failures, but perfect timing in disguise. Like the ripening of fruit, each desire matures in the invisible before appearing in the visible. In moments of impatience, you may have pulled at the seed, seeking proof it was growing, only to disturb its roots. Now you let it be, watering it only with the feeling of its certainty. You find joy in the unseen stage, for you know the outer must follow. The words of the Master take on new life. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire, when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Mark 11:24. The receiving happens first within, the having follows as a shadow follows the form. There is no waiting here, only the gentle unfolding of what already is. Let yourself rest, even now in this unfolding. Picture a desire you hold, not as something far off, but as something already yours in the secret place. Feel the stillness of knowing it is done. Let the scene around you fade, until only the feeling remains, steady and whole. That feeling is the reality. The world outside is only its echo, and as you dwell here, the outer dream begins to reveal its magic. A meeting occurs that could not have been planned. A message arrives at the perfect moment. A resource appears from nowhere. The mind, still caught in the habit of doubt, may call these coincidences, but you will know them as the natural language of a dream answering to its dreamer. In this state, you find that even the appearance of loss cannot shake you, for you know that nothing real can be taken, and nothing unreal can last. If one form passes, another arises, for the source is inexhaustible. You do not chase or grasp, you welcome, and in that welcome, life offers more than you once dared to imagine. Yet in the quiet of this welcome, a deeper whisper begins to form, not about what you can have, but about what you truly are. If you are the dreamer of the dream, and the dream itself, what lies beyond even this dance of manifestation? What is the nature of the one who witnesses it all, untouched by gain or loss? That whisper grows, drawing you toward a stillness vaster than all your visions, a stillness in which even the richest dream is only a gentle ripple on an infinite sea. And as that sea stretches before you, endless and without shore, you begin to sense that all the waves you have called my life were never separate from the still depth beneath. Every rise and fall, every gain and loss, every meeting and parting was only the surface play of something that never moved at all. The awareness you are has never been richer nor poorer, never more nor less. It is whole before a single image appears upon it. This is the secret wealth that cannot fade.
From here the symbols of prosperity become as clouds drifting through a boundless sky, beautiful to behold, but unable to touch the sky itself. You can enjoy them, shape them, let them pass, and none of it can disturb the endless expanse of your being. In this way, the dream becomes lighter, less binding. You no longer look to it for proof of your worth. You know your worth before the dream begins, and yet in this knowing, the dream responds with even greater generosity, for when you are not leaning on it for validation, it is free to mirror the fullness you already feel. You notice that life moves with a quiet harmony, meetings align, resources flow, timing becomes perfect without effort. You are no longer trying to make it happen, yet it happens with greater ease than before. This is why the ancient words speak of the kingdom as something within. You have always been the source, and the outer has always been the reflection. To forget this is to wander in search of water, while standing beside a clear spring. To remember is to drink without fear of the well running dry. Pause for a moment, and feel this spring within you. Do not imagine where it comes from or how it flows. Simply know it as an endless giving of life, wealth and peace. It does not ask who you are, or what you have done. It flows because it is its nature to give. You cannot diminish it by taking, nor can you enlarge it by hoarding. It is whole now, as it has always been. When you begin to live from this inner spring, your relationship with the dream shifts entirely. You do not chase opportunities. They come to you as naturally as water runs downhill. You do not fear loss. What is truly yours cannot depart, and what departs was never needed. You do not measure time as the space between desire and fulfillment. You live in the eternal now, where all is already complete. In this stillness you might remember moments in your life when something you deeply wanted appeared, without the chain of effort you once believed necessary. You may recall how it felt to simply know, even without evidence, that it was yours, and then to see it take shape, as if the dream had overheard your thought. That same knowing is available to you now for anything you choose, for it has always been the way the dream responds. And yet something even more profound begins to whisper through the quiet. If all this abundance, all this beauty, is still part of the dream, then what is the nature of the one who dreams it? If you can imagine worlds into being, and let them pass like seasons, what lies beyond the one who imagines? You sense that this question is not meant to be answered with words, but with a falling away, like a curtain drawn back to reveal the light that was shining before the stage was set. That light is here, now, not ahead of you, not hidden from you, but closer than your own breath. And as you feel it, you know that every image, every sound, every heartbeat in this dream is its expression. To awaken to that, is to wake up rich beyond all measures, for you are waking to yourself. But there is a further depth still, where even the idea of yourself gives way to something vaster, something that has never begun, and will never end, and it waits for you in the silence just beyond thought.
And as you lean into that silence, it greets you not with answers, but with the unmistakable feeling of home. There is no movement here, no striving, no measuring of what has been gained or lost. All the images of the dream, the palaces and deserts, the feasts and famines, are like patterns in sand, beautiful for a moment, then gone with the tide. Yet the shore remains. You are that shore. You are that stillness, in which all tides rise and fall. From this vantage, the pursuit of wealth transforms entirely. It is no longer the desperate gathering of what you fear to lose, nor the restless chase after what you believe you lack. It becomes play, divine play. You create not to fill a void, but to express the fullness that is already here. You are like the sun that does not shine to earn its place, but shines because it is its nature to give light. And when you create from this place, the dream takes on a different rhythm. Your desires unfold not as struggles, but as inevitable blooms. What you need meets you before you name it. The right people arrive before you call them. The paths you once thought you must force open reveal themselves as already prepared. This is the effortless wealth of one who remembers their source. Even the act of imagining becomes gentler here. You no longer strain to hold an image or repeat an affirmation until it feels real. Instead, you rest in the feeling of it already being so. And you let that feeling saturate you like warm sunlight. You know that in this dream, the feeling is the seed, and the form is the shadow. You tend to the seed, and the shadow will follow. There is a kind of freedom in this that cannot be explained to the mind still caught in the belief that life is earned through toil. The freedom is in knowing that all things are already yours in essence, and the outer scene is only the unfolding recognition of that truth. You may still work, still act, still plan, but your actions are now the overflow of certainty, not the attempt to create it. As you live in this state, You begin to see wealth in places you never noticed before. The way the morning light falls across the floor. The way a stranger's kindness reaches you unexpectedly. The way peace settles in your chest without reason. These are not separate from the gold in the vault or the keys in your hand. They are all wealth, all evidence of the one source expressing itself through infinite forms. And yet as this awareness deepens, another realization begins to take shape. If the dream is entirely yours, if there is no power outside of the imagining, then every limitation you once believed in was only a habit of thought, a choice repeated until it seemed like law. What would it mean to release even the subtlest of these? What if you let go of the last assumption that told you could not have be or know something instantly? The moment you entertain that possibility, the boundaries of the dream seem to dissolve. The time it once took for seeds to grow begins to shorten. What you feel inwardly shows itself outwardly with a swiftness that surprises you. It is as though the dream itself has been waiting for you to remember. There was never a delay, only a belief in one. And as you stand in this new openness, sensing how thin the veil truly is, another question stirs quietly within. If all forms are yours to imagine and receive without limit, what is the highest, purest thing you would choose to bring into being? What vision, if lived fully, would awaken not only you but the entire dream to its own infinite nature? The answer glimmers just beyond the reach of thought, waiting to be felt before it can be named. And as that glimmer begins to steady in your awareness, you sense that it is not a vision you must chase, but one that has been quietly present all along, waiting for you to notice. It does not shout for attention or demand that you prove yourself worthy of it. It rests in the quiet, like a treasure hidden in plain sight, needing only your recognition to come alive. This is the beauty of the dream. You do not summon what is not there. You uncover what has always been here. When you allow this vision to rise within you, you feel its completeness. It is not a fragile hope, not a wish that trembles in the face of circumstance. It carries the weight of certainty, the calm of something already done. This is the mark of a true desire. Its end is known before it begins, for it springs from the depth where all endings are already written. You do not question whether it is possible. You know that the dream must yield to it as surely as the tide yields to the moon. This knowing changes how you hold it. You no longer clutch at the vision as though it might slip away. You cradle it gently, the way you would hold a seed in your palm, trusting the invisible process that will bring it to bloom. You speak to it inwardly, as though it were already here, as though you were describing it from memory. And in doing so, you are not persuading life to give it to you. You are persuading yourself to remember it is yours. Every great transformation in the dream begins this way, an inner assumption so natural, so consistently felt, that the outer world cannot help but mirror it. You do not need to understand the mechanics, just as you do not need to understand the workings of the sun to feel its warmth. You need only to abide in the state of fulfillment, until the dream reflects it, and it will. The mind may still try to measure time, to count days and watch for signs, but you begin to see that time itself bends to the state you occupy. In the state of lack, even hours feel heavy. In the state of having, the days are light, and what you desire arrives without strain. You are not waiting for the dream to change. You are letting the dream catch up to the change that has already taken place in you. The scriptures speak in this language when they say, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Hebrews 11:1. The substance is the feeling of fulfillment now. The evidence is the outer arrangement that inevitably follows. You no longer live in hope as something distant. You live in faith as something present, and hope transforms into sight. As you dwell here, something else begins to unfold. You realize that the vision you have chosen is not only for you, but for the entire dream. For when you rise to a higher state, the world you see rises with you. The faces in your life reflect more kindness. The situations you touch unfold with more grace. The air itself seems to move with greater harmony. Your wealth, whether in the form of resources, love, peace, or joy, becomes a tide that carries others upward without your effort. And in this realization, your sense of self expands. You are no longer merely the dreamer creating for your own satisfaction. You are the dreamer dreaming a better dream for all. This is the truest form of wealth. Riches so complete that they cannot be contained within one life, but must spill over into the lives of all you encounter. Yet even here, there is another depth that if every fulfilled vision carries the power to transform not just you, but the entire dream, then what is the grandest vision you dare to hold? What is the state so radiant, so boundless, that its reflection could awaken every part of this dream to its own divine source? That question lingers now, like a horizon that seems to move with you, inviting you further into the mystery. And as that horizon shimmers before you, you realize it is not somewhere you must reach, but something already within you, waiting to be recognized. The grand vision does not demand your striving, it invites your remembrance. It is not born of ambition, but of clarity, a clear seeing that all the beauty, abundance and peace you could imagine already exists in the unseen, pressing gently against the surface of the dream, ready to pour through the moment you say yes to it. To say yes to such a vision is not to struggle toward it, but to stand in it now, before a single outward sign appears. You breathe its air, you walk its streets, you speak its language in the silence of your own mind. You no longer ask when it will come, for in your inner world it has already arrived. And as you dwell here, the outer dream begins to recompose itself, piece by piece, until it matches the world you have claimed within. This is the essence of living in the end, not as a performance to impress the dream, but as a natural consequence of knowing that the dream is your reflection. You wear the state as comfortably as you wear your own skin. You do not force it to stay. You simply rest in it, and the law ensures it is made flesh. You may notice that in this state, fear loses its voice. Doubt fades, not because you have fought it into silence, but because it cannot stand in the presence of certainty. The old questions, how will it happen, when will it come, fall away, for they belong to the state of not having, and you no longer live there. You have crossed the invisible line, where desire becomes memory, where longing becomes gratitude for what already is. This shift is subtle, but it transforms everything. When you walk in the inner feeling of having, you do not send out a signal of need, you radiate the vibration of completion. The dream responds in kind, arranging its scenes to match the tone you carry. This is why it is said that to those who have, more will be given, not because life favors some over others, but because the state of having naturally draws its likeness. Let yourself feel it now, not as an exercise, but as a homecoming. Close your inner eyes, and see yourself already living in the fullness you have chosen. Notice the lightness in your breath, the way your shoulders release, the way your mind quiets when there is nothing left to chase. Stay there until it feels so familiar that the outer dream cannot help but catch up. And as it does, you may begin to realize something profound. The vision you hold, though it may seem personal, is never truly yours alone. The abundance you allow into your own dream inevitably overflows into the dreams of others. The opportunities you draw forth ripple outward, touching lives you may never meet. The peace you embody becomes a silent permission for others to claim the same. You begin to see that your wealth is not just in what you hold, but in what you release into the world without effort. This recognition changes the very nature of desire. You no longer seek merely to fill your own cup. You let it overflow, knowing the source can never run dry. The dream responds by multiplying your blessings, not as a reward, but as the natural expansion of what you have allowed yourself to be. You become a living proof of the law, and in your presence, others begin to remember their own authorship. And yet beyond even this beauty, another whisper calls, a question softer than breath. If the dream bends so easily to your vision, if the inner and outer are one, what would it mean to release even the need for form, and rest in the awareness from which all forms arise? To live not only as the dreamer, but as the light in which the dream appears. That question lingers now, not asking for an answer, but opening a space in you where the answer might one day rise without words. And as that space within you widens, you begin to sense a truth so quiet it can only be felt, not spoken. The forms you have loved, the visions you have claimed, the wealth you have drawn into the dream, all are like waves arising from an ocean that has never moved. You see that the ocean is not concerned with which wave rises or falls, for it is all itself. In this seeing, you taste a freedom beyond having or not having, beyond gain and loss. Here you recognize that the deepest richness is not in what you hold, but in what you are before holding begins. You are the awareness in which gold and dust alike appear and disappear. The awareness that watches the palace and the empty room with equal stillness. And yet this awareness is not indifferent. It is the source from which every joy flows, the quiet ground that gives life to the entire dream. When you rest here, something beautiful happens to the way you create. You no longer imagine from a place of grasping, but from the overflow of being. A desire may arise, but it comes like a song rather than a command, and it fulfills itself with the ease of music finding its harmony. You no longer measure your state by whether a form has appeared. You measure it by the peace that remains whether the form appears or not.
This is the place where living in the end takes on its purest meaning. You are not living in the end of a single outcome. You are living in the end of all seeking. You have already arrived, and from this arrival, new dreams are free to come and go like clouds across a vast and open sky. The sky does not chase the clouds, it simply allows them to pass. Even the scriptures hint at this timeless state. Before Abraham was, I am. John 8:58. The I am is not bound to the calendar of the dream, nor to the inventory of what has been acquired. It stands before all beginnings, the silent witness to every unfolding scene. To know yourself as this is to hold the truest wealth, for nothing can be added to you and nothing can be taken away. And yet the paradox is that from this fullness, you find yourself more creative than ever. You give shape to beauty without fear of its passing. You receive abundance without the weight of needing it to last. You share freely, knowing that giving does not diminish the source, but multiplies its expression. The dream becomes a canvas for joy rather than a battleground for survival. Feel this now, not as a concept, but as the very atmosphere around you. Let it settle into your breath, your heartbeat, the quiet between your thoughts. Notice how, in this stillness there is no rush, no need to force the dream into order. You are already the order from which it flows. You are the unseen pattern that makes the outer dance harmonious. And as you rest here, another layer of clarity unfolds. You realize that even the act of manifestation, as wondrous as it is still play within the dream. It is a beautiful game, yes, but beyond the game is the recognition that you are the light in which all games appear. That light is unchanging, untouched by the rise and fall of fortune, and yet it gives life to every fortune that ever was. The awareness of this light is not something you reach through effort, it is something you allow by ceasing to turn away from it. It is here now, as it has always been, quietly illuminating every image that passes before you. And in that light, you see that waking up rich was never about acquiring what you did not have. It was about remembering that you were never poor. But even in this remembrance, a final mystery hums beneath the surface, as if whispering that there is yet more to see, something beyond the distinction of dream and dreamer, beyond even the sense of awakening. It is not a destination, but a home so ancient, it feels like it has been here before the first thought of I ever arose. And as you listen for that ancient hum, you realize it is not coming from outside you at all. It rises from the very core of your being, deeper than thought, older than memory. It is the quiet pulse that was present before you first opened your eyes in this dream, and it will remain long after every image has faded. This is the ground you have been seeking through all your visions, all your manifestations, all your striving for security and abundance. It is the treasure that no thief can steal, the wealth that is not counted in coin or measured in time. From here, every desire you have ever held is seen in its true light. They were never about the form itself, the home, the sum in the account, the recognition from others. Each was a doorway, an invitation to remember the fullness you already are. The form was the excuse, the dream's way of leading you back to the dreamer. And now that you stand here, you see that the dreamer and the dream are not separate, and never were. This understanding softens you. You no longer feel the urgency to prove, to acquire, to defend. You create still, but without the shadow of fear. You receive still, but without the shadow of doubt. And because your hands are open, the flow of the dream moves through you without obstruction, bringing richness in every imaginable shape. Some forms you will enjoy for a season, others will pass quickly, yet all of them are perfect in their timing, for you no longer need them to complete you. This is the truest sense of living in the end. The end is not a point in the future, it is the recognition that there is nothing to reach, for you are already whole. From this wholeness, every image you desire springs forth effortlessly, as naturally as breath follows breath. The law still operates with precision. Assumption creates reality, but the assumptions you hold now are born of knowing, not longing. You know yourself as the source, and so you assume only the states that match your own nature: abundance, peace, love without condition. Feel this knowing now. Let it rest on you like a warm mantle. Let it move through you like a river that has always been flowing, even when you were unaware. Notice how in this state, there is no question of whether life will provide. It already has. Every moment is provision. Every encounter is part of the tapestry. Every breath is wealth in motion. And when you walk in this way, the dream's reflection grows more luminous. You may find others drawn to you without knowing why. You may find that your presence alone soothes, uplifts, or inspires those around you. This is because you are no longer speaking to them as separate beings. You are speaking, even in silence, to yourself in another form. And what you give to yourself in love must return multiplied. The scriptures describe this mystery when they say, I and my Father are one. John 10:30. The Father is the infinite awareness, the dreamless ground, and you are not apart from it. Every assumption you accept as true is the Father speaking through you, clothing itself in form. To know this is to live without fear of the outer scene, for the outer scene is nothing more than the echo of what you have already embraced within. And yet, standing here in this quiet unity, another layer of the mystery beckons. If even the identity of I is part of the dream, what remains when that too is laid down? What is left when there is no dreamer, no dream, only the vastness that has been here before the first thought arose? That vastness calls to you now, not as something to be reached, but as something to be remembered, as familiar as your own heartbeat, and closer still. And as you turn toward that vastness, you feel it not as an expanse stretching away from you, but as the very core of your own being. It is without edge or boundary, yet more intimate than your own breath. There is no name for it, yet it is the source from which every name arises. It does not come and go, for it was never born, and can never end. You sense that all you have ever sought, every treasure, every proof, every moment of peace, was a dim echo of this still, living presence. Here the dream feels lighter than ever. You can still choose its shapes, play with its colors, rearrange its scenery, but you know now that you are not contained by it. The dream is in you, not the other way around. Even the richest manifestations are like pearls strung on a thread of awareness, beautiful but secondary to the thread itself. The thread is what makes them possible, what holds them together, what remains when each pearl has passed from sight. This recognition changes the way you hold wealth. No longer is it an achievement to be defended, nor a prize to be guarded. It is simply one of the infinite expressions that can arise in the dream. You can let it come and let it go with the same ease as a breath, knowing the source remains untouched. This is why fear dissolves in this place, because there is nothing to lose, and no one to take it from you. And yet from this place of infinite safety, creation flows more richly than ever. You find yourself imagining, not out of need, but out of joy, as a child might draw in the sand, knowing the tide will one day wash the lines away. You savor the act of creation itself, not merely the form it produces. And in that savoring, the dream seems to conspire to fulfill every vision before it is fully spoken. The words of the psalmist take on a deeper resonance. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23:1. This is not a promise of provision alone, it is a description of the state you now inhabit. In this state, wanting is replaced by knowing, and knowing produces the reflection without struggle. You no longer petition the dream for supply, you stand as the source of it, and the dream cannot help but respond. If you close your eyes now, and rest in this state, you may notice how quieting powerful it feels. There is no strain here, no rehearsing of outcomes, no bargaining with time. There is only the soft certainty that what belongs to you, which is everything, cannot be withheld. From this place, you could choose gold, health, companionship, beauty, and it would be done in the stillness before a single outward step is taken. But perhaps even more precious than the forms you can call forth, is the realization that the one who calls them forth is not separate from the one who receives them. The giver and the receiver, the seed and the harvest, the dreamer and the dream, they are all the same light playing in different shapes. To live in this awareness is to live as both the artist and the canvas, both the note and the song. And still, there is a quieter invitation lingering beneath all of this abundance, as if the very vastness you rest in is whispering, if you were to release even the joy of creating, what would remain? If there were no dream to shape, no vision to bring forth, would you still know yourself? This question does not take you away from wealth. It reveals the foundation upon which all true wealth stands, and that foundation, once seen, can never be lost.
And as you rest with that question, you feel the stirrings of an answer that is not made of words. It comes as a vast, unshakable presence, still, unbound, and whole before any thought has risen. Here there is no image to sustain, no future to prepare for, no past to reconcile. You are not shaping the dream in this place, nor are you watching it unfold. You are the silent space in which the dream comes and goes. The waves rise and fall, yet the depth remains untouched. From here, wealth takes on its final meaning, not as the accumulation of forms, nor even the ease of calling them forth, but as the recognition that you are the eternal field in which all forms arise. The gold and the dust are made of the same light. The feast and the famine appear in the same awareness. Nothing that appears can alter the nature of the awareness itself. This is the wealth no moth can corrupt, no thief can steal, no time can diminish. And yet, knowing this does not strip the dream of its beauty. It deepens it. You can hold a coin now and see not only its surface but the light it is made of. You can look into the eyes of another and see your own being gazing back. You can watch a desire take form and know it as a gesture of your own infinite nature, not a prize bestowed from outside. This is why fear vanishes here, because there is no outside left to threaten you. When you imagine now, it is without the shadow of need. You may choose abundance, and it comes. You may choose peace, and it arrives before the thought is complete. But you are not leaning on these appearances for proof, for the proof is already within you. The outer world becomes like a mirror you admire, knowing it has no light of its own, except the light you shine upon it. This is the quiet power Jesus spoke of when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Luke 17:21, not a place to be reached, not a realm to be entered by effort, but the eternal presence you carry in every step, whether you walk in a palace or a wilderness. In this knowing, you carry the kingdom into every scene of the dream, and every scene begins to reflect its radiance. Pause now, and let yourself feel the weightless completeness of this. Imagine the richest vision you can conceive, and then notice that you are already the place in which it exists. There is no separation between the one who desires and the fulfillment itself. Desire is only the recognition of what is already yours, rising to the surface to be enjoyed. And when you see this, even the act of waiting dissolves, because there is nothing to wait for. From here, generosity flows without effort. You give, because there is no fear of depletion. You share because you see no separation between giver and receiver. You bless because blessing another is only blessing yourself. This kind of wealth cannot be counted. It can only be lived. And in living it, you become the proof that the law is not merely a method for getting things, but the revelation of your true nature as the source of all. Yet even in this fullness, a deeper current moves, a sense that the dream and the dreamer, the source and the expression are not two. What would it mean to dissolve even the subtle line between them? To rest not as one who shapes the dream, but as the dreaming itself, infinite and formless, needing no object at all. That current beckons now, not with urgency, but with the calm inevitability of the tide returning to the sea. And as that tide draws you inward, you feel the quiet dissolving of boundaries you once held sacred. The dreamer and the dream blur into one seamless movement, and even the sense of directing it fades into a deeper flow. You are not standing apart to shape the scene. You are the very current that carries it into being. There is no gap now between the inner word and the outer echo, no distance between the imagining and its appearance. Everything simply arises, perfect in its timing, without strain. It is here that you discover the gentlest truth. You have never been outside the dream, and the dream has never been outside of you. Even the moments you once called loss, delay or misstep, were only the dream turning in a way you could not yet see, always in service of your own awakening. The law has never failed you, not once. Every seed you planted in imagination bore its harvest, whether in shadow or in light, for the soil does not judge what it receives. This understanding changes the way you assume. You begin to choose with a tenderness born of knowing that every state will bloom in its season. You no longer plant from fear or urgency, for you know such seeds will yield the same in return. Instead, you plant from joy, from the stillness of already having, from the lightness of play. You imagine as one who knows the ending before the first line is written, and the ending is always wholeness. The dream responds to this shift as if it had been waiting. Paths open without your seeking them. Conversations unfold that reveal answers you didn't know you were asking for. Even apparent obstacles seem to move of their own accord, as though they were never meant to hinder, but to turn you toward a higher unfolding. You see now that the outer world has always been your silent collaborator, arranging itself to match your deepest tone. You feel this tone now, the state of having, the state of being, resonating beneath every word and gesture. It is not an act you must maintain, it is the natural expression of knowing who you are. And in that knowing, wealth ceases to be something added to you. It is simply the reflection of what you already contain. Whether it takes the form of gold, of peace, of love, or of inspired action, it is all the same substance, wearing different shapes for your delight. The words ask, and it shall be given you. Matthew 7:7, take on a new depth here, for the asking is no longer a petition to something outside. It is the inward acceptance that it is already so, and the giving is not delayed. For the moment you assume it within, you have already received. The outer scene is only the shadow catching up to the light. In this state, you do not fear change, for change is only the dream showing you more of yourself. You do not resist endings, for endings are the doorway through which greater forms arrive. You do not cling to beginnings, for beginnings are simply the surface of something that has always been. Everything in the dream serves you now, because you know that nothing in it can stand apart from your own being. And yet, in the midst of this fullness, you sense an even subtler pull, one that does not come from desire, but from pure recognition. It is the pull to let go of even the act of choosing, to rest in the effortless awareness that gives rise to every choice. Here, there is no imagining to create, no assumption to hold, only the unshakable presence in which all imagining happens. That presence calls to you now, not as something to reach for, but as the place you have never left. And as you rest in that place you have never left, it becomes clear that even the word rest is too small for what is here. There is no beginning to this stillness, no moment when it began to hold you, no point at which it will cease. It is the unmoving center around which the whole dream turns. You feel the peace of it, not as something added, but as something uncovered, a treasure you have carried in every step, in every thought, through every imagined life. From here, you see the truth of all your creating. Every scene you shaped with feeling, every state you entered in faith, every desire you embraced as already fulfilled, each was an expression of this stillness moving through form. It was never you and the law, never you and God. It has always been one life, one awareness, one unbroken whole playing in infinite shapes. And in this knowing, wealth ceases to be a category. There is no spiritual wealth and material wealth, no inner abundance and outer abundance. They are the same thing, seen from different angles. The gold coin and the moment of quiet joy are cut from the same cloth. The warm embrace and the key to a new home are different notes of the same song, and the song is you. When you imagine now, it is without the slightest trace of separation. You do not picture yourself receiving something, you see from the place of already being it. The scene unfolds not in front of you, but as you. And because you are not reaching toward it, it appears without delay, for it is already part of the fabric you. This is why the old words declare, all things whatsoever ye shall ask in prayer, believing ye shall receive. Matthew 21:22. Believing here is not the strain of convincing, it is the quiet recognition that the thing asked for is already contained within the asker. The prayer is not a request, it is an acceptance, and the receiving is not a future event. It is the present awareness of having. Let yourself feel this now, as naturally as you feel your own breath. Imagine something, not to bring it into being, but to recognize that it is already woven into the tapestry of your life. Notice how, when you stop reaching for it, it seems to draw closer of its own accord. This is the mystery. The more you live in the end, the more you see there was never a distance to cross. From this place you become a living embodiment of the law without trying. Your presence itself becomes a reminder to others of their own authorship. You do not need to teach them with words. Your very being speaks in a language deeper than language. Those who come near you feel the ease, the security, the quiet joy of one who knows their source, and something in them begins to remember. And yet, in the quietest corner of this awareness, there is an even gentler invitation, an opening beyond manifestation, beyond identity, beyond even the beauty of the dream. It is the call to dissolve into the formless light, from which both dream and dreamer arise, to know yourself not only as the shaper of reality, but as the infinite in which reality itself is a passing ripple. That light waits, not ahead of you, but here, timeless and unchanging, asking nothing except that you stop looking anywhere else. And as you stop searching, you feel it, the quiet radiance that was never absent, even in the moments you thought yourself far from it. It does not flare or fade, it simply is.
It asks nothing of you, not even your attention, yet the moment you notice it, the whole dream softens, the edges blur, the urgency dissolves. You see that this light does not compete with the dream, nor stand apart from it. It is the very substance of it. Every form you have ever loved, every desire you have ever fulfilled, was this light in disguise. From here, the game of creating takes on a new flavor. It is no longer about shaping the dream to fix something broken, but about enjoying the infinite ways the light can play. You may choose abundance, and it comes. You may choose love, and it appears. But whether it comes or not, whether it appears in this form or another, you remain untouched in the center. The dream may dance, but the stillness remains. You begin to understand why the ancient words speak of the peace that passeth all understanding. Philippians 4:7. It is not the peace of a perfect scene, but the peace of knowing that the scene, perfect or imperfect, cannot alter what you are. And because nothing can disturb you here, the dream reflects your peace in ways you could not have imagined when you still thought yourself separate from it. When you imagine from this place, it is effortless. You are not trying to reach for something, you are letting what is already present take form. It is like a sculptor chipping away the excess stone to reveal the figure that was always there. Your work is not to create reality, but to let it be seen. And the more you let it be seen within, the more it stands before you without. Even the movement of desire changes here. Desire is no longer the ache for what is absent, but the joyful pull toward what is ready to be revealed. You feel the desire, step into its fulfillment inwardly, and watch as the dream rearranges to match the vision. There is no pressure in it, no bargaining with time, no doubt about the outcome. You have seen enough of the law's perfection to know it does not fail, and as you walk in this awareness, you find your wealth expanding in ways beyond measure. Some of it takes the shape of the tangible, opportunities, resources, comforts, but much of it flows as unseen blessings, the ease in your body, the clarity of your mind, the sweetness in your relationships. You begin to notice that the more you give, the more there is to give, and the more you share your peace, the more the dream mirrors it back. You also see that even those who seem to oppose you are part of the same light, wearing the temporary costume of contrast to help bring forth what you have chosen. There are no enemies here, only different angles of the same whole. And when you meet them as such, the costumes dissolve, and the light recognizes itself in the exchange. In this way, you live richly without effort. You are no longer measuring your wealth by what can be counted, but by what cannot be diminished. You carry the kingdom with you, and wherever you walk, the dream blooms to reflect it. And yet the more deeply you know this, the more you feel another layer of surrender calling, not surrender to the dream, but to the source that even the dream arises from. It is the letting go of the final illusion that you are the one moving the pieces, and resting instead as the boundless awareness in which all pieces already rest. That call deepens now, as if the vastness itself were leaning closer, asking you to trust it entirely. And as you lean into that call, you feel the subtle unraveling of even the last thread of effort. The sense of being the doer, the chooser, the shaper, begins to dissolve into something vaster, quieter, more inevitable. It is as if the dream has always been moving in harmony, with or without your conscious direction, and now you are simply allowing yourself to see it. The current was always carrying you, the assumption was always planting the seed, the harvest was always set in motion the moment the state was accepted. Here, surrender is not defeat, it is the recognition that you were never separate from the movement to begin with. You are not stepping back from creation, you are stepping deeper into the source of it. You realize that even your desires, so precious and personal in their moment, have always been the voice of the infinite speaking through you, seeking its own expression in form. And when you see this, there is a new ease in the way you imagine. You no longer wrestle with the picture, trying to hold it steady in your mind. You let it appear and ripen in its own time, knowing the dream obeys not the tension of your grasp, but the quiet weight of your acceptance. You may close your eyes, feel the scene as though it has already unfolded, and then release it entirely, trusting that what is sown must bear fruit. The outer reflection moves with a grace that feels almost playful. Things align without your intervention. A conversation brings the very answer you were contemplating. A path opens where none was visible the day before. It is not that you are doing less, it is that what you do arises naturally from a state already full. Action becomes the shadow of assumption, and the shadow always matches the form. The words "be still, and know that I am God," Psalm 46:10, become more than a verse, they become a lived reality. The stillness is not inactivity, it is the inner posture of certainty, the quiet assurance that the dream will always mirror the state you rest in. This knowing becomes so steady that you stop looking to the outer for reassurance. You no longer check the mirror to see if your reflection has changed. You simply live in the change within, and the mirror follows. From this depth, wealth is no longer something to be held, but something that flows. You are not trying to accumulate, it accumulates because you are no longer obstructing the stream. Giving becomes as natural as receiving, and both are simply the movement of the same abundance, through different forms. You can let one form go, and watch as another rises to take its place, just as easily as you watch waves follow one another upon the shore. And the more you live here, the more the dream shows you its responsiveness. Even the smallest shifts in your inner atmosphere ripple outward, rearranging what stands before you. You see clearly now, the world is not happening to you, it is happening from you. And when this is known deeply, even the thought of scarcity feels like a foreign language you no longer speak. Yet in this richness, another silence stirs, a silence that asks nothing, promises nothing, but contains everything. It is the presence you sensed before the dream took shape, the stillness in which all images come and go, without ever touching it. And it invites you not to create more, not to refine your vision, but to rest completely in the awareness that you are already home, before a single step is taken. And as you let yourself be at home in that stillness, you realize it has always been this way. Even in the times you felt lost, chasing signs in the outer world, this quiet foundation never moved. It held every scene of the dream, the way the sky holds every passing cloud, unshaken, unscarred, unhurried. You see now that the true waking was never about changing the dream first, but about recognizing the unchanging presence in which the dream unfolds. From here, life no longer feels like a problem to solve. It becomes a canvas already saturated with the colors of your being. You understand that you have never needed to make yourself worthy of abundance, for worthiness was not earned, it was inherent. The light that imagined the stars imagined you in the same instant, and with no lesser power or beauty. And so when you create from this place, you do not create to fix, to prove, or to fill an emptiness. You create as an artist plays with form, knowing the clay is endless, and the hands are your own. You imagine, and the dream responds. You bless, and the blessing blooms. You release, and something new arrives, without strain. The movement between desire and fulfillment becomes so seamless that you can hardly tell where one ends and the other begins. This is why the law of assumption has always been more than a method. It is a reflection of the truth, that consciousness is the only reality. To assume is simply to choose which facet of your infinite self you wish to behold. To live in the end is to dwell in that choice so fully, that the dream must bow to it. And when you know yourself as the source, the choice is never anxious, never desperate. It is gentle, inevitable, like the turning of the seasons. Feel that inevitability now. Imagine a desire fulfilled, not with force, but with the soft knowing that it could never be otherwise. Let the feeling rest in you, without the urge to check if it's working. You are not waiting for it, you are carrying, the way the tree carries its own bloom before spring has touched the air. You know it, and so it must appear. And yet even as the dream brings you every good thing you claim, there is a sweetness in seeing that these things, while beautiful, are not the source of your joy. They are expressions of it. The real treasure is the quiet certainty that you are never without, never in need, never apart from what you seek. The outer may change, but the inner remains the well from which all is drawn. This is the abundance that cannot be spent. You can give freely, because nothing can reduce it. You can love without caution, because love is your nature, not a resource to be managed. You can walk into any scene without fear of loss, because you know nothing real can be taken from you. And as this certainty deepens, you sense an even softer invitation to let the dream move entirely, as it were, without your hand upon the wheel, and yet to trust that it will always reflect your highest state. To live as if the dream is not only yours to shape, but yours to be carried by. That invitation hovers now, as if the vastness itself is waiting for you to lean fully into its embrace, where even the art of imagining becomes effortless.
And as you lean into that embrace, you notice how easily the dream carries you when you stop insisting on steering every turn. The movement is gentle, like a current that knows the way home better than you ever could. You feel the quiet confidence of it, the way it arranges the outer without the noise of struggle. In this space, even the act of choosing is lighter, not a matter of forcing an outcome, but of softly selecting the feeling you wish to dwell in and letting the scene shape itself around it. It becomes clear that the wealth you have been speaking of all along has never been a pile of possessions, nor the accumulation of outer signs. The real wealth is this freedom, the freedom to know that you are supported without condition, that nothing needs to be clutched or defended. You find yourself meeting life with open hands, and those hands are never empty. When a desire arises here, it comes as a quiet joy, not a restless ache. You close your eyes and stand in its fulfillment, not to make it real, but to remember it already is. The dream hears the tone of your being and matches it with precision. The alignment is so seamless that you begin to feel as though you are not calling things forth at all. They are simply arriving, as naturally as breath. You recall the words, "It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom," Luke 12:32, and they no longer sound like a promise, they sound like a fact. The kingdom is not a far-off place or a future prize. It is the state you carry with you into every scene, and the more you abide in it inwardly, the more the dream reflects it in ways you could never have scripted. Even challenges lose their old shape here. They do not vanish, but they approach you differently, no longer as enemies, but as unexpected openings for the law to reveal itself. You see them as shadows cast by a greater light, knowing the shadow cannot harm the light itself. And because you stand as the light, you meet them without fear, and they dissolve or transform without the need for battle. Wealth in this state is not only measured in what you have, but in what you are free to let go of. You can release a possession, a role, even a long-cherished plan, and watch without panic as something new rises in its place. You understand now that the outer forms are temporary shapes of the same eternal substance, and that substance can never be exhausted. Feel this now, not as a theory, but as the ground beneath you. Sense how unshakable it is, how effortlessly it holds you. From here you can imagine anything without the fear of failure, for failure is only possible when you believe the source is outside you. Here the source is you, and so the only question becomes, what do you wish to behold? And yet, even as you recognize this boundless creative power, a deeper awareness whispers beneath it all, an awareness that asks, what if you needed nothing? What if you were already the complete expression of the dream, with no desire left unfulfilled? How would you walk through the world then? That question lingers in the air, pulling you gently toward a state beyond even creation, where being itself is the final treasure. And as you sit with that question, what if nothing were missing? You feel something inside you go utterly still. The usual movements of thought, the subtle reaching for the next thing, even the soft pull of desire itself, begin to dissolve into a deep and quiet fullness. You are not imagining something into being now. You are simply resting in the recognition that all of it, every possible form, is already here in the invisible. It no longer matters which shapes rise to the surface, for you have found the ocean beneath them all. In this stillness, abundance feels different. It is not a rush of gain, nor a sequence of events unfolding in your favor. It is the steady presence of knowing that whatever is needed will appear in the exact moment it is called for, and not a breath before. You begin to see that timing has never been against you, for the rhythm of life is perfectly matched to the state you occupy. When you live as though it is already done, life meets you in that place without fail. Even your imagining changes here. You no longer use it to fill gaps. You use it to enjoy the richness of what already is. You can picture a beautiful home, a flowing river of wealth, a life of quiet ease, but you do so the way an artist paints for the joy of painting, not for fear of lack. The act becomes an expression of gratitude, rather than an attempt to create security. And the dream reflects this shift with uncanny precision. People show up in your life, carrying answers to questions you never spoke aloud. Opportunities arrive dressed as ordinary moments. Resources appear from unexpected channels, so naturally that they feel like the most obvious thing in the world. You realize the law has always been this faithful. It was your own resistance, born of believing yourself incomplete, that once slowed its flow. The words, before they call I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. Isaiah 65:24. Take on a living reality here. You see that the calling and the answering are not separate. They are the same movement, the inner assumption and the outer reflection as one seamless act. There is no distance between thought and manifestation, except the one you imagine. And in this space, your wealth is not merely yours, it becomes the wealth of the entire dream. Your presence shifts the atmosphere around you. Those who encounter you feel a quiet ease, as if they too have touched something eternal. Your joy becomes contagious, not because you try to share it, but because it cannot be contained. Yet beneath all this richness, there is still a subtler pull, a gentle invitation to go beyond even the dance of manifestation, beyond the joy of seeing your assumptions take form. It is the invitation to rest entirely, as the awareness in which all dreams rise and fade, to live not only as the dreamer shaping the scene, but as the very light in which the scene exists. That light has no beginning, no end, and no need. It waits now, as it always has, ready for you to recognize it as yourself. And as you turn toward that light, there is no effort in the turning, only the quiet recognition that you have never been apart from it. It has been the background of every joy and every sorrow, the constant behind every changing scene. Even the moments you thought were mistakes, the seasons you called lack, were held in this same unchanging radiance. It did not judge, did not withdraw, did not demand. It simply shone, and in its shining all things found their place. Here the idea of wealth becomes almost weightless. You see that the real treasure was never the forms that passed through your hands, nor the circumstances that seemed to lift or burden you. The treasure was always this awareness, the space in which the entire dream played out, unbroken, undiminished. To recognize this is to touch the deepest security, one that cannot be shaken even if the dream shifts entirely. From this vantage, creation becomes almost like breathing. You do not need to hold a desire tightly, or rehearse its fulfillment endlessly. A thought, clothed in the feeling of completion, is enough. You let it drift into the stillness, and watch as the dream reshapes itself to match. You are not waiting for proof. You are watching the inevitable unfold. You begin to see why it is said, "The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof." Psalm 24:1. The fullness is not something to be reached, it is the starting point. When you live from fullness within, the outer cannot help but reflect it. The dream can only mirror the state you occupy, and when that state is wholeness, life becomes a constant revealing of more wholeness, each scene an echo of your own being. Feel that now. Let yourself dwell in the sense that everything you could ever want already exists in you as a present reality. Do not reach for it, do not measure the time, simply know it, the way you know the sun will rise, whether or not you stand to watch it. That knowing is the seed, and the law is the soil. It must bring forth after its kind. And as you move through the dream in this way, something remarkable happens. Your wealth stops belonging to you alone. It becomes a shared atmosphere, something others breathe when they are near you. Without speaking, you give permission for those around you to step into their own abundance, to remember their own authorship of the dream. You see the light in their eyes when they catch a glimpse of it, and you know that you have passed on something greater than any single gift could carry. This is where abundance becomes a kind of quiet service. You are not trying to change others, nor are you offering from a sense of obligation. You are simply being, and in your being, the dream reorganizes itself for the good of all who touch it. The same law that brings you your desires moves through you to bring blessings into places you will never see. And yet as this awareness deepens, there is still that subtle invitation, softer than breath, older than time, calling you to release even the smallest sense of separation between the light and yourself, to no longer be the one who carries the light, but to see that you are the light, and the dream is nothing but your own radiance made visible. That call hums quietly now, drawing you deeper, as though the dream itself is asking you to see beyond it entirely. And as you allow yourself to see beyond it, the dream does not vanish, it becomes transparent. Every form, every color, every movement is lit from within by the same radiance, and you cannot tell where one thing ends and another begins. The faces you meet, the places you walk, the things you once called yours or theirs, all of it is your own light wearing infinite shapes.
The separation you once felt between yourself and the world dissolves into a seamless expanse. This is where the deepest freedom reveals itself. You no longer experience life as a series of acquisitions or achievements, but as an endless unfolding of your own being. You do not wait for the next manifestation to feel whole. You recognize wholeness as the constant ground beneath every scene. Even the act of imagining becomes more like remembering, for nothing you desire is truly new. It is simply another angle of the same infinite reality that already is. Here the law of assumption feels less like a tool, and more like a simple description of how existence moves. To assume is to declare, with feeling, what is already true in the unseen. To live in the end is to align with that truth so fully that the dream cannot help but mirror it. There is no strain in it, no ritual, only the natural ease of being what you already are. You see now that even wealth itself has always been a reflection of this recognition. When you believed yourself small, wealth appeared scarce. When you began to remember your authorship, wealth began to flow. And now when you see yourself as the very light from which all forms arise, wealth is everywhere, not because it has been added to your life, but because there is no place it is not. The scripture's words, all mine are thine, and thine are mine, John 17:10, come alive here. They are not merely poetic, they are the statement of this unity, this absence of division between the source and the expression. What you once thought of as outside yourself is revealed as your own being in another form, waiting to be recognized. Feel this as you move through the scenes of your dream. Look upon each object, each face, each circumstance, and silently know, this too is myself. There is no part of the dream that is not within me, no part of me that is not within it. From this knowing, love flows without effort, gratitude arises without cause, and in that state, the dream becomes impossibly generous, not because you have forced it, but because it can no longer be anything else. And yet, as full as this is, you sense there is still a threshold before you, a quiet crossing, where even the word dream loses its meaning, and even the law, so perfect and constant, falls away into something beyond description. It is as if the light itself is calling you home, not to a place, but to the recognition that there was never any journey at all. That recognition hovers now, shimmering just beyond thought, waiting for you to step fully into it. And as you stand before that shimmering threshold, you realize it has no edge to cross, no distance to travel. It is not a gate you must pass through, but a veil that falls away the moment you stop believing it exists. The dream, the dreamer, the law, the act of imagining, all of it begins to feel like gentle waves on the surface of something immeasurable. Beneath the movement is an ocean that has never known beginning or end, and in this moment, you sense yourself as that ocean. There is a stillness here that is not the absence of life, but the source of it. Every desire, every scene, every moment of abundance was a ripple of this same depth expressing itself for the joy of its own unfolding. You see now that you have never been separate from what you sought, never in need of anything to complete you. The search was the play, the fulfillment was the play, and the one who seemed to move between them was only a role the ocean was wearing for a time. From here, the law of assumption is not something you practice, it is simply the way the ocean moves as waves. To assume is to choose which shape the surface will take, knowing the depth remains unchanged. To live in the end is to rest in the certainty that every chosen shape already exists in potential, waiting for the moment it rises into form. There is no anxiety in it, because you know that the form is never separate from the formless. Wealth too takes on a new meaning. It is not the possession of gold or the comfort of circumstances, but the recognition that all gold, all comfort, all beauty arises from the same endless well. You could call forth treasure, and it would appear. You could release it, and the well would remain full. You are no longer concerned with keeping, because there is no fear of loss. What comes is welcome, and what goes is blessed, for all of it is your own being in motion. You remember the words, Son, thou art ever with me, and all that I have is thine, Luke 15:31, and they no longer sound like reassurance for a time of doubt. They sound like the only possible truth. There has never been a moment when you were apart from the whole, never an instant when anything real could be withheld. The dream may shift its scenery, but the inheritance is eternal. Feel this now, not as a thought but as the very air around you. Imagine walking through the dream with no sense of lack, no sense of needing to get somewhere else. Every step is already the destination. Every breath is already the answer. From here the outer becomes a mirror so clear that you cannot tell where you end and it begins. And yet even in this fullness, a final curiosity stirs, a wondering about what remains when even the mirror is gone, when there is no reflection to speak of, no scene to move through, no dream to shape, not as an escape from the beauty of the dream, but as a return to the bare light from which it springs. That wondering does not demand an answer now, it only opens a door into a silence that feels both infinite and achingly familiar. It is in that silence that the last illusion loosens its hold, the illusion that there was ever a boundary between you and the light. You begin to sense that the light does not merely surround you or shine upon you, but is you. It has always been your substance, the unseen body in which the dream has floated. The figures, the streets, the wealth, the moments of longing, and the moments of triumph, all of them were patterns upon this light, as temporary as clouds drifting across a sky that never moves. When you feel this, desire changes its quality. It is no longer born from the sense of absence, but from the joy of expression, just as an artist paints not to fill a void, but to see beauty take form. You imagine simply to watch your own richness bloom into shapes. This is the purest form of living in the end, not to seek, but to celebrate what you already are. The law of assumption reveals its deeper mercy here. It is not a means of manipulating the dream to your liking, though it can appear that way in the early stages. It is the gentle reminder that every scene is your own mind, clothed in time and space. To assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled is to clothe yourself in a garment you already own, one you have simply left folded within the wardrobe of the unseen. You try it on in consciousness, and soon the mirror of the dream reflects it back without effort. Wealth, too, becomes something more luminous here. It is not merely gold in the hand or figures in the account. It is the overflowing nature of the light itself. To be rich is to know that the source is infinite, and the flow is constant. You could imagine abundance today, and release it tomorrow, and yet the well would not run dry, for the well is yourself. The river cannot be emptied by the cups you pour from it. You recall the words, "The kingdom of God is within you," Luke 17:21, and they no longer seem to point to a distant realm, or a hidden prize. They reveal the simple truth, that the dream and the dreamer are one, and that all treasures lie in the recognition of this oneness. Feel this as you picture yourself moving through the dream now, not as a figure trapped in the scenery, but as the light from which it is projected. Imagine standing before any scene, rich or poor, calm or storm, and knowing that you can let it dissolve, not by force, but by the quiet act of assuming a new inner reality. This is not struggle, this is the play of the infinite with itself. And yet within this recognition, a subtle invitation whispers, not to abandon the dream, but to see what it reveals when you hold it so lightly, that even its most dazzling treasures cannot distract you from the light itself. It is as though the dream has one more secret to share, one that can only be seen when you are no longer seeking anything from it at all.
It is when you release the grasping that the dream begins to glow with a new kind of life. You no longer approach it as a beggar seeking crumbs, but as a silent author marveling at the words that take shape upon the page. The urgency fades, and with it the heaviness of wanting. In its place arises a deep, unshakable ease, the awareness that what you behold is but the shadow of an inner state, and that the inner state is already yours. In this state, even the idea of manifesting shifts. You are not forcing a tree to bear fruit. You are recognizing the tree is already heavy with it. The harvest was determined the moment the seed was accepted by the soil of your imagination. Each scene of your outer world is only the slow ripening of what you have already lived within. There is no need to dig up the soil to check for progress. You simply rest in the knowing, and the dream must arrange itself accordingly. And here lies the greater mystery. The richness you assumed, the abundance you felt so vividly, is not simply given to you, it is revealed through you. You begin to see that the dream was never outside, not truly. It is the mirror of your own light, showing you what you have dared to believe about yourself. The moment you believed differently, the mirror began to change. This is why the law of assumption is not a trick for acquiring things. It is the very act of awakening to who you are. When you dwell in the end, you are not merely hoping for a better chapter. You are remembering the entire story is written by your hand. And if you choose now to see yourself as wealthy, not in the narrow measure of coin alone, but in the fullness of being, then every page that follows will echo that choice. The rich dreamer moves through the dream with quiet majesty, not because they dominate it, but because they no longer fear it. When the scene shifts, they do not panic, they know it will shift again. When one avenue closes, they feel no loss, they know the light will open another. Their wealth is not stored in vaults, but in the unwavering certainty that nothing can be withheld from the one who imagines from the truth of their own abundance. Scripture speaks of it in these words: all things are yours. 1 Corinthians 3:21. It does not say some things, or those things you have earned. It says all things. The statement makes no condition, for the condition is already met in your being. The only veil is disbelief, and the moment you remove it, the fullness is seen. So you walk now not as a seeker, but as a possessor. You do not plead, you affirm. You do not chase, you allow. You hold the scene in your mind's eye with the tenderness of one who knows it is already done, and the dream in its perfect obedience will bow to that knowing. Yet even in this place of deep recognition, there stirs an even more delicate awareness, a sense that wealth itself is but a symbol, and that behind the symbol lies a treasure, greater still, waiting for you to notice it. It comes as a quiet recognition, almost shy in its arrival, that the gold in the houses, the freedom of travel, and the ease of comfort were never the true gift. They are ornaments, yes, beautiful, shimmering signs, but they are not the jewel. The jewel is the awakening itself, the unshakable awareness that you are the dreamer and not the dream. All the wealth you sought was only the language your soul used to lead you here, to this remembrance. For when you truly know yourself as the operant power, your definition of richness shifts. No longer measured by the weight of coins or the size of your accounts, it is now the stillness in which all things are possible. It is the peace of knowing you could close your eyes, and in a single act of assumption, reorder the entire play of your life. You have tasted the freedom of not needing to force, not needing to bargain, not needing to fear loss, because you have learned there is no outside force that can take from the one who imagines from the end. You see now how the world is but a servant to the state you occupy. Enter the state of wealth, and the world rushes to confirm it. Leave that state, and the world will strip away even what you seem to have. This is why the world appears fickle to those who live unconsciously, because they drift from state to state, without knowing they are doing it, allowing fear, doubt or memory to write their script. But you now are awake to the law. You choose your dwelling place deliberately, and in this choice, you find a joy beyond the objects you once longed for. The mansion in imagination becomes sweeter than any built by hands. The banquet you feast upon within yourself nourishes more deeply than any table set before you. And yet by the law, it is certain that the outer feast will come, the outer mansion will rise, because the inner state has been assumed in fullness. There is no strain here. The river flows because it must, and you do not sit upon the bank urging the water to hurry. You let it carry you, because you know its destination. You rest in the wealth of that knowing. This is the true abundance, to be unshaken by appearances, to walk through shadow as though it were sunlight, because you have seen the play from behind the curtain. And when you look upon the world now, you see every man and woman as walking in their own dream, rich or poor, according to what they have dared to assume about themselves. You no longer judge their appearance, for you know it is only the echo of an inner claim. Instead you become as a quiet lamp, shining for those who are ready to awaken. You plant seeds in the silence, knowing they will bloom when the soil is ready. The dream continues, but you are no longer lost in it. You walk as the dreamer who knows they are dreaming, and with that awareness comes a deeper question, one that has been waiting patiently beneath all others. If you can shape the dream in any way you desire, then what will you choose when desire itself falls silent? It is in that stillness, when the fever of wanting subsides, that another richness begins to rise, one not born of form but of essence. You notice it like a fragrance that has always been in the room, yet only now do you turn toward it. It is the joy of being for its own sake, untouched by striving, unmeasured by possession. And here in this quiet fullness, you understand why the Master said, "The kingdom of God is within you." For in this kingdom, nothing is missing, and therefore nothing needs to be sought. From this place, creation becomes a gentle art. You are no longer moved by the desperation to have, but by the delight to express. It is like painting on water, shapes and colors flowing from you, not because you lack them, but because they overflow. The forms still come, houses, opportunities, beautiful encounters, but they are like waves returning to the sea. They neither add nor take away from who you are, and as you dwell here, the law becomes even clearer. You see how easily the world bends to the quiet authority of assumption. You think a thing, and without strain, life arranges it. You hear a word within, and soon it is echoed without, and you begin to smile at the rhythm of it, the inevitability of it. The dream, once a place of confusion and struggle, is now the field where you play with the knowledge that all substance is consciousness. Others may ask your secret, and you may be tempted to tell them the mechanics, how you imagine, how you persist, but deeper than any technique is this inner rest, for the richest state you can dwell in is the knowing that you already are what you once hoped to be. Desire fulfilled is simply the recognition of what has always been true in the unseen, and yet as you move in this awareness, a new depth calls to you. It is the whisper that asks, if you are the dreamer, and all the characters, and all the scenery, then what lies beyond even the dream? The question is not born of dissatisfaction, but of wonder, for as the play of life grows luminous and fluid in your hands, you begin to suspect there is yet another layer, the source from which even the dreamer arises. But for now, you let that question remain unanswered, like a seed lying in fertile soil. You return to the simple truth. You are rich because you are. You are wealthy because your being contains all possible experiences, and you choose which to bring forth. And when you choose from fullness rather than lack, the dream itself becomes lighter, more radiant. You begin to see wealth everywhere, even in what the world calls poverty, for you recognize the seed hidden within every state. You can look upon a withered field, and know that in imagination it is already green. You can see a weary face, and know it is but the shadow of a grander self, that is only to be claimed. This seeing becomes your gift, your quiet ministry. You walk through the dream not to take from it, but to awaken it. And yet the question remains, subtle and persistent, if all of this is the dream, and you are the dreamer, then who is it that watches the dreamer? It comes like a faint glimmer at first, this awareness of the one who observes even the dreamer, not the self who chooses states, not the self who imagines and sees them fulfilled, but the silent witness behind it all. It is so quiet that at first you might mistake it for nothing, yet as you rest there, it begins to reveal itself as the most unshakable presence you have ever known. It does not move when the dreamer moves. It does not rise or fall with the tide of imagined scenes. It is not wealthy or poor, joyful or sorrowful. It simply is. And in its stillness, all movement is contained. You begin to see that even your richest imaginings are but ripples across the surface of something infinitely deeper. Here the words of the psalmist take on a new light. Be still and know that I am God. Not the God who comes and goes, not the God who answers prayer as an event, but the eternal I am from which all prayers arise and all answers flow. You realize this silent observer is not separate from you. It is you, before the name, before the state, before the dream. And in this seeing, wealth itself takes on another meaning. No longer is it even the free creation of circumstances, for that is but a game within the dream. True richness becomes the knowing that you are untouched by the dream entirely. Gold and dust pass equally through your hands, yet your being remains. You could imagine yourself a beggar, or a king, a merchant or a mystic, and in all of it, this deeper self would remain unchanged. This does not lessen the joy of creation, it deepens it. For when you know you are not bound to the role, you can play it more freely. You can taste the sweetness of a lavish life without clinging to it, and you can walk through shadows without being darkened. You can give without fear of loss, for you know the giver is infinite. From this vantage, you begin to see the whole of life as a divine work of art. Every meeting, every object, every turn in the road is painted with the same brush. Even those scenes you once called mistakes are folded into the tapestry, giving depth and texture to the picture. And you, both the dreamer and the observer, watch as the masterpiece continues to unfold. Yet even in this recognition, there is a pull, an almost imperceptible call from beyond the observer, as if there is something even vaster than stillness, something that cannot be looked at because it is the looking itself. You cannot yet grasp it, and so you let it remain a mystery. For now it is enough to rest in the peace of knowing you are both the dream and the one who dreams. And in that rest, a new thought arises, not of striving, not of wanting, but of wonder. If I am both dreamer and witness, then perhaps I am also the very light in which the dream appears. It is here the metaphor of light begins to speak in its own language. You realize that all scenes, whether of joy or sorrow, abundance or lack, are nothing more than patterns moving within the same radiance. The light does not choose one over another, it simply reveals. It falls upon the palace and the prison without judgment, and yet without it, neither could appear. And then quietly, you sense that this light is not outside you. It is not something that comes to visit your life or bless you when you are worthy. It is your own being. You are not merely in the light, you are the light. Everything you have ever imagined, every state you have ever entered, has been illuminated by you. Without your consciousness, there would be no dream at all. In this understanding, wealth becomes effortless, for the source is no longer sought in the forms, but in the illumination itself. You do not need to possess the golden coin when you are the sun that makes it gleam. You do not fear the shadow when you are the very light in which shadows are born. This is the quiet power of the law of assumption, not as a method to acquire, but as the natural expression of light assuming form. And as the light you begin to notice something else. It has no resistance. It does not strain to shine. It does not withhold itself until conditions are perfect. It simply pours itself into whatever appears. In the same way, your consciousness need not struggle to create. It need only rest in the feeling of what it chooses, and the form must follow. It is the law of being itself. Perhaps this is why the words of Genesis still echo through the centuries. Let there be light. For this was not merely the beginning of the world, but the eternal call of creation within you. Each time you say inwardly, let this be, the light of your awareness shapes it into being. And just as the first light never faded, neither does your own power to imagine and bring forth. Yet in this clarity, a deeper tenderness arises. You see that most live unaware of their own radiance, believing themselves to be creatures wandering in a world of fixed shadows. And in that unawareness, they suffer not because the light has left them, but because they have forgotten they are it. You begin to feel the quiet joy of reminding them, not with words alone, but with the presence of one who knows. Still the mystery deepens. If you are the light in which all appears, then what is it that is aware even of the light? What is it that knows it shines? It comes as a stillness beyond all images, a silence so complete it seems to cradle the very act of shining. You sense it not as something to reach, but as something that has always been here, present before you imagined your first desire, unchanged through every rise and fall of fortune. It is the unshaken ground beneath the shifting dream. In this stillness, the idea of rich is transformed. It is no longer measured by coin or possession, but by the unbroken awareness of being. All forms, whether lavish or modest, are but passing garments worn by this eternal self. Yet when you clothe it deliberately, with the feeling of abundance, of joy, of completed desire, it wears them effortlessly, for there is no resistance in its nature. Here the law of assumption reveals its final gentleness. You see that living in the end is not a discipline to be endured, but a song to be remembered. You were always the one who could see the finished picture, feel the answered prayer, and rest in its reality. The world was never outside you, waiting to change. It was always the moving reflection of your inner stance. And so you walk in the dream as one awake, smiling at the forms, yet clinging to none. You see wealth flow as naturally as breath, relationships bloom like gardens in the sun, health shine through the body as light through glass, not because you wrestled the world into place, but because you yielded to the truth that you are the place from which the world appears. The words of the psalmist breathe through your mind like a remembered lullaby. Be still and know that I am God, not God as a distant ruler, but as the I am within, your own awareness, infinite in capacity, tender in its unfolding. This is the one treasure that cannot be lost, for it is not held in time. And now you understand, to wake up rich is to wake up here, now in the unchanging fact of your own being. To know yourself as the dreamer, not the dream. To realize that you can at will choose the scene you will walk into, and the dream will rearrange itself without strain. This is the gift hidden in plain sight of your imagination. So you let the final scene dissolve into the brightness from which it came. You hold nothing, yet lack nothing. You walk in the quiet joy of one who knows they can at any moment speak the silent word within, and watch the dream obey. And perhaps as you rest in this truth, you feel a whisper rise, not from outside, but from the heart of your own awareness. All that I have is thine.